Nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, and then shall the end come.
Tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?
The Trump peace team has been very busy during its first 7 months meeting with Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas over 20 times. In our last program, we rehearsed meetings held so far by the Trump administration with many Middle Eastern leaders. We covered from the inauguration to the end of April. In today's program, we will cover developments from May to this present time. It appears that we are much closer to a Palestinian-Israeli peace agreement than the average person realizes. Remember, whenever the peace agreement is signed, it will signal the beginning of the final 7 years to the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus to the earth. Now let's go back to May the 3rd of 2017. Palestinian Chairman Mahmoud Abbas meets with President Trump at the White House. Abbas praised Trump's ability to bring peace. He said, "I believe that we are capable under your leadership, your courageous stewardship, and your wisdom, as well as your great negotiating ability. We can be true partners to you to bring about a historic peace treaty. With you, we have hope," Abbas stated. Now, also on May the 3rd, Trump said this to Abbas. Trump hopes Abbas signs peace agreement at the White House. Speaking in the White House, President Donald Trump said that he looked forward to having President Mahmoud Abbas return to the White House to sign a peace agreement with the Israelis. "We will get it done. There's a very, very good chance," Trump said. Now remember, if they get this done, it'll be the greatest prophetic fulfillment in 2,000 years. It's going to be absolutely huge. Also on May the 3rd, this article appeared, "Valuable progress already made toward Middle East peace." And that was a statement by none other than Vice President Mike Pence. And then on May the 5th, Vladimir Putin and Mahmoud Abbas to meet on May the 11th in Sochi. The two men will discuss the results of the Arab League summit that we talked about in our last program, with special attention paid to the Palestinian issue and the struggle against terrorism, as well as Abbas's meeting this past week with U.S. President Donald Trump. You see what's happening here? Abbas is talking to Putin. He's talking to Trump. Everybody's talking to each other. Things are moving. On May the 8th, this article, Abbas will accept land swaps. This is a big one. Abbas advisor stated, PA president still willing to accept minor land swaps. More on that a little bit later. Then on May the 11th, Putin supports Trump peace efforts. Russian President Vladimir Putin says Russia will give its full support for Trump's efforts to restart the Israel-Palestinian negotiations. May 12th, Abbas says Russia must play a role in the peace process. It is impossible to solve the Palestinian issue without Russia's meaningful participation in the peace process, Mahmoud Abbas said. May 12th, Abbas more ready for peace now than ever. Listen, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas has voiced unprecedented readiness to reach a peace deal with Israel Sources close to the efforts to renew talks between Israel and the Palestinians have told the Jerusalem Post. He also has said he would renew the talks under Trump's auspices without preconditions, which he's always insisted upon prior to this time. May 15th, Netanyahu's political opponents will support a peace agreement. Israel's opposition parties promised Netanyahu a safety net that would enable him to advance a peace process with U.S. President Donald Trump, even if his coalition partners tried to torpedo the agreement. May 21st, President Trump speaks to over 50 Arab leaders in Saudi Arabia. In his first foreign trip as president, President Trump arrived in Saudi Arabia to a royal welcome. He spoke there to a summit of over 50 Sunni Muslim leaders, challenging them to establish a coalition to fight terrorism and to support a peace agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. And I might tell you, he was very well received. May 22nd, President flies directly from Saudi Arabia to Israel, a practice not previously allowed. May 22nd, President Trump arrives in Israel from Saudi Arabia. After a day packed with activities, he and his wife Melania enjoy a private dinner with the Netanyahus at their residence. May 22nd, Arab leaders are ready for relations with Israel. U.S. President Donald Trump told Israeli leaders that the Arab leaders he met with in Saudi Arabia are willing to take steps toward Israel if the Israeli-Palestinian peace process makes progress. So now the Palestinians won't have to go it alone. They have all these other Arab leaders that say, we're in, we will support you, instead of him having to be out there all by himself. May 22nd, Abbas to offer land swap with Israel in Trump talks. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, during U.S. President Donald Trump's visit to Israel tomorrow, will present a plan by which the Arabs renounce, listen to this, 6.5% of the lands under their political control to Israel, 3 times as much as has previously been offered. May 23rd, President Trump and Mahmoud Abbas meet in Bethlehem. Speaking alongside Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas, Trump said he wants to achieve a conflict-ending deal between Israel and the Palestinians. Abbas replied that the Palestinians are committed to working with you to reach a historic peace deal between us and Israel. Now, let's pause just a moment. We've got a lot in this about Israel. And here at End Time Ministries, Judy and I are leading a tour to Israel October the 31st through November the 11th. And as you're viewing this program, there's a little window of time left for you to get on board. If you would like to go with us for this 12-day End Time Prophecy Tour, ladies and gentlemen, it is the trip of a lifetime. You will be absolutely overwhelmed, and you're going to be on site. They may have a deal done by the time we get there. If they do, this will be our first tour there after peace. Now, that's not a guarantee. We don't know that yet. If you're interested in the tour, need more information, call us. Call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463, 1-800-END-TIME, and simply ask to speak to someone about the tour. They'll give you all the information you need, but don't wait, because we're right up against our deadline now, so do it today. Now, back to all of the breaking news from Israel. On May the 25th, more than 1,000 Jews visited the Temple Mount on Jerusalem Day. More than 1,000 Jews ascended the Temple Mount on Jerusalem Day to mark the 50th anniversary of the liberation and reunification of Jerusalem during the Six-Day War in 1967, setting a new record for the number of Jews on the Temple Mount at any one time since the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 AD, almost 2,000 years ago. Wow. May 25th, regional peace before Israel-Palestinian deal. Palestinian official says Trump proposed switching the order of the peace process. The report claims that Trump proposed a plan based on the Arab Peace Initiative with priority given to regional peace before finalization of the Israeli-Palestinian issue. May 26th, Greenblatt follows up on Trump visit to Israel. So President Trump leaves the Middle East. Very next day, who's back there? His special envoy to the Middle East, Jason Greenblatt, returned to Israel on Thursday and met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Palestinian Authority Mahmoud Abbas to follow up on conversations they each had with President Donald Trump during his visit. Talk about striking while the iron is hot. Again, on May the 26th, is final agreement being discussed. According to Channel 10 News there in Israel, in meetings held this week, Americans discussed with Israel elements of a potential final agreement with the Palestinians. June 1st, Trump delays moving embassy to Jerusalem. President Trump issued a waiver delaying moving the American embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. The White House said the embassy will be moved as part of the anticipated Palestinian-Israeli peace agreement. June 2nd, Israelis won't divide Jerusalem for a peace agreement. This is interesting. In a recent survey, 84% of Israelis said they did not support ceding parts of the old city of Jerusalem to the Palestinian Authority, even if it meant the achievement of a final peace agreement. In other words, under no circumstance will we surrender Jerusalem. That's important because the Bible prophesies they will not surrender Jerusalem under the coming peace agreement. June 6th, U.S. Senate unanimously endorses an undivided Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Unanimously, I'm talking about every senator that voted, 100 of them, unanimously said, we support a united Jerusalem as Israel's capital. That's amazing. June the 11th, Jews living in new Palestinian state should be allowed to stay as a Jewish minority. It was disclosed that Netanyahu, during the 2016 negotiations, demanded settlers be allowed to remain in Palestine after the future peace deal. After all, there are 1.6 million Arabs living in Israel as an Arab minority. Why shouldn't there be 300,000 or 400,000 Jews living as a Jewish minority under the new Palestinian state? That's the point, and Netanyahu is for that. June 19th, Kushner and Greenblatt returned to Israel this week to continue talks with Netanyahu and Abbas. June 20th, Greenblatt promotes Middle East Peace Summit in September. Now, we're nearing September. We're already in September right now. So Greenblatt is expected to push for pledges from both sides to attend the upcoming peace summit expected to be held in September. Will this happen? Can't tell you that for sure. I'm only telling you that in June, that's what they were attempting to accomplish. Did they get agreement? We don't know that yet. June 20th, Arab states offer to normalize relations with Israel before peace is achieved. This is a new development. A number of Arab states have offered to normalize relations with Israel ahead of the planned peace talks between Israel and the Palestinians. June 21st, peace talks are now dealing with final status issues. Kushner and Greenblatt met with Abbas in Ramallah. All issues were discussed in depth, including final status issues such as refugees and prisoners. Earlier in the day, Kushner, Greenblatt, and U.S. Ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, met with Prime Minister Netanyahu in Jerusalem. June 28th, 5 potential red heifers. 5 red Angus cows are currently carrying potential red heifer candidates which could provide the ashes needed for the purification of the Israeli people so that they can build Israel's third temple. Once this peace agreement is concluded, Israel, during the first 3.5 years of that agreement, will build their temple on the Temple Mount, the first Jewish temple in 2,000 years. We may be closer to this agreement than most of us believe. July the 2nd, Trump says this: interesting things are happening. President Trump wrote on Twitter, spoke yesterday with the King of Saudi Arabia about peace in the Middle East. Interesting things are happening, exclamation mark. July 10th, groundwork being laid for peace summit. Greenblatt returns to Israel, where he will meet with Netanyahu and Abbas as he continues to lay the groundwork for the peace summit tentatively scheduled for the end of summer. July 13th, Jordanians, Palestinians, Israelis, and the U.S. signed huge water deal in a sign of growing regional economic cooperation. The United States, Israel, Jordan, and the Palestinian Authority have reached an agreement to build a canal and a water pipeline from the Gulf of Aqaba to the Dead Sea area. The pipeline is to supply drinking water produced by a giant water purification facility that will be built in the Jordanian city of Aqaba. The main consumers of the water will be Jordan, the Palestinian Authority, and the Israeli communities in the Arava area, including the city of Eilat. July 18th, Vice President Mike Pence, embassy move to Jerusalem is question of when, not if. July 27, Netanyahu is ready for considerable territorial concessions. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has informed the Trump administration that he is prepared to make considerable concessions from pre-1967 Israel to the Palestinian Authority in a final status agreement in exchange for Israel's annexation of major population centers in Judea and Samaria. The proposal marks the first time the Prime Minister has gone on record offering significant territorial concessions from pre-1967 Israel in exchange for a final status agreement with the Palestinian Authority. This seems to indicate that peace negotiations are much further along than most of us realize. So they're really negotiating right now, aren't they? I mean, Greenblatt, Kushner, they're back and forth, back and forth. I'm reading to you the dates. July 31st. For the first time in 2,000 years, Jewish priests will undergo training to enter the temple's Holy of Holies. Why do you need to do that if you're not going to have a temple? Well, they are going to have a temple, and they know it. For the first time in 2,000 years, a group of Kohanim, men of the Jewish priestly caste, living close to Jerusalem's old city, are studying the relevant Jewish laws to be able to ascend the Temple Mount and enter the Holy of Holies, where God's presence is said to dwell. August 1st. Record number of Jews visit the Temple Mount on Tisha B'Av morning, with the Jewish people commemorating the destruction of the ancient temples in Jerusalem on the fast of Tisha B'Av. On Tuesday, more than 1,200 Jewish visitors went to the Temple Mount. This is the most Jewish visitors to the Temple Mount in one day since the destruction of Israel's second temple 2,000 years ago. So we set a record on Jerusalem Day of 1,000. Now on Tisha B'Av, 1,200. August 15th, Netanyahu proposes making Jewish settlement enclaves within projected new Palestinian state. What does that mean? Well, there's a lot of these settlements out there in the area that will become the Palestinian state. How do we deal with that? He now says, well, let's just let them be enclaves, let them stay a part of Israel, but they'll be surrounded by Palestinian territory. There are 20 different places on earth that have that kind of a situation. One of the examples, which is no more but was very famous, was when West Berlin was surrounded by East Germany territory, and that situation went on for a number of years. So very interesting that this is what Netanyahu is thinking. They're thinking about all the critical issues that will go into this peace agreement. August 16th, Greenblatt meets with the head of the PLO mission to the U.S. In preparation for the trip to the Middle East later in August, Greenblatt met with the head of the PLO mission to the United States, Hussam Zalmat, at the White House. Zalmat reaffirmed the full readiness of the Palestinian leadership to support President Trump's efforts to reach a comprehensive solution to the Palestinian-Israeli issue. August 18. Palestinians see Kushner's upcoming Middle East visit as crucial. The Palestinian Authority now expects to hear what the Trump administration's vision for peace is. Mahmoud Abbas said, they've been listening to us for years, at least for many months, and they've not tipped their hand to let us know what they think is right. They've listened to both sides. They're taking in all this information. Now, on this trip, we're anticipating they will say to us, now this is what we think will work for all sides. Then on August the 22nd through the 24th, Trump peace team visits the Middle East. President Trump's Middle East peace team visited Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, Israel, and the Palestinians this week. However, all who participated in these high-level talks are being very tight-lipped about what was said. Absolutely stunning. You know, the news media basically is saying to us, oh, nothing much is happening. But I went through this before. Back in 1993, when they were attempting to get the Oslo Peace Accords, they negotiated for months. And even in early September, they were saying, oh, the talks are stalled, nothing's happening. And then one day, out of the blue, they make the announcement. There have been secret back-channel talks being conducted, and they have reached an agreement. Within days, Yasser Arafat was shaking hands with Yitzhak Rabin on the White House lawn as President Bill Clinton pulled them together. They signed the historic Oslo Peace Accords. However, it did not fully bring peace. Now they're trying to finish what was started at Oslo in 1993. It's going to be very interesting to see if they're able to pull this together. Now, I want to make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that we have a good appreciation of what I'm talking about here today. I'm talking about a prophetic fulfillment that will be the greatest prophetic fulfillment since the crucifixion and the resurrection of Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago. When they signed this peace agreement, an agreement that establishes a Palestinian state in the West Bank, also allows Jews to stay out there among them under some type of an agreement, and then puts the Temple Mount under a sharing arrangement, which the Bible explicitly says they will do. The agreement that does that, allowing the Jews to build their temple and ultimately to start animal sacrifices again, while they don't disturb the Dome of the Rock or the Al-Aqsa Mosque, that particular agreement, once it's signed, will be the trigger on the 7-year march to the Battle of Armageddon. Now, the world will hail it as an incredible breakthrough. However, it will really be the Armageddon agreement, because it's going to lead them straight to Armageddon. It's going to leave undone the dispute over Jerusalem. Israel won't give it up. So they're going to say, let's agree to everything else. Let's put off the Jerusalem issue for 7 years, then we'll bring it back. When the 7 years expires, they'll bring it back, and they're going to say to Israel, you've got to withdraw from East Jerusalem now and give that to the Palestinians as their capital. Israel will again say, can't do it. And consequently, the world governmental system, undoubtedly the United Nations, will pass a resolution against them demanding they do it. They will refuse, and world government forces will then invade Israel for the prophesied battle of Armageddon. Now, there's been several mentions of a summit meeting in September. I don't know as of right now whether they're going to pull that off or not. All I'm telling you is, it appears to me we're closer than ever. I've been following this for 50 years, and it looks like to me all of the factors are leading up right now. Now, whether they get the agreement now, or 6 months from now, or a year or 2 years from now, there's going to be this peace agreement. It's prophesied in the Bible. The prophecies always come to pass. And when they do, you and I will enter the final 7 years to Armageddon. Are we ready? Now, here at End Time Ministries, we are desperately trying to get ready because we know we're running out of time. And one of the things we're doing, our people here have already told me, look, when this happens, when they sign that agreement, we're just bringing our sleeping bags. We're staying here. Our phones are going to ring off the hook. But in order for us to be able to do this, there is a ministry software that we desperately need, and we need it in place and functioning smoothly before all this happens. So we need to act right now. If you would like to help, it's an expensive piece of software. But if we had 400 people that would donate $500 each to the critical software need of End Time Ministries, done. If you're out there and God's blessed you where you could donate $500, please do it right now. The number to call, 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. Or you can go to endtime.com, click on the donate button, and it'll say critical software need. Make your contribution there. Now, if you can't do 500, do what you can. Maybe you want to do more. Call us, 1-800-363-8463.
Through the years, we have seen God perform miracle after miracle at End Time Ministries, and we are trusting God for another season of miracles this summer. So we decided that we wanted to share our miraculous story and boost your faith by offering you one of our newest DVDs titled The Miracle Called End Time for free with any purchase of $29 or more. To request your copy, call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463 and mention the code MIRACLE or order online at endtime.com.
Most people have dreamed of someday walking on the ground where Jesus walked over 2,000 years ago. You don't have to wait any longer. Make this the year for your life-changing experience. This is your official invitation to join Judy and me for our 2017 Fall End Time Prophecy Tour. The trip of a lifetime is a severe understatement. If you could travel to any place on earth, your first choice should definitely be the Holy Land. There is simply no other place like it. Call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463 for more information. Ask to speak to Holly or Jana about the tour.
If your station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the archives button.
I cannot promise you that we're going to see a peace agreement signed in September. I can't promise you that we won't see it signed. Now, if you would like to have a more extensive understanding of what we talked about in the first half of our program today, subscribe to End Time Magazine, because there in the End Time Magazine, I have laid out all of these quotes with the location the publication and the date of publication, so you can go back and read each entire article for yourself if you so choose. Now, in order to do that, subscribe right away, because that will become your first issue if you subscribe right away. You can subscribe to End Time Magazine by calling 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. Now, let me talk to you for just a moment. All of our loyal listeners out there, and there are many, many of you, and I appreciate you so incredibly, so very much. But whenever they pull the trigger on this peace deal, I hope you're with us, because we're going to have to work like we've never worked before. This is not going to be time to stay in the bleachers. You're going to have to get on the playing field. I mean, right now, as I'm talking to you, there's a tremendous disaster taking place in the southern Texas area, in the Houston, Corpus Christi area. And all hands are on deck to deal with that problem. Well, that's nothing compared to what's going to happen. I'm not in any way denigrating what's going on. That's so important. And our prayers are with the people of South Texas. We have friends down there, and it's tough down there. So I hope all of us are praying for them today and for the next few days as they're dealing with this unprecedented flooding situation. All I'm telling you is the effort that's been expended right now in the Houston, Corpus Christi area is nothing compared to what you and I will need to do. We will need total mobilization when this hits. And it could hit as early as September. I'm giving you the evidence today. I mean, did you hear the quotes? Both Mahmoud Abbas, the head of the Palestinians, and Prime Minister Netanyahu said, we are ready to swap land. What's that really all about? Well, Israel has 850,000 people living in the territory that Israel captured in the 1967 war. However, there are many Arabs living in what was Israel before 67. And so the latest proposal is, look, we'll take this area. It's called the Triangle. It's just southeast of Haifa. There's an area there with a very large concentration of Arab population. They said, why don't we give you that, and you give us Malaya Dumim, Gush Etzion, and several other places. We're talking about high concentrations of Jewish people. So they're discussing these end of agreement issues right now. We don't know much about what they're saying because they're not disclosing. But I'll just tell you, as one that's founded this and followed this for 50 years, it looks like to me they've discussed almost everything, and they may already have a deal pretty much wrapped up. Now, that's not a prediction. I don't have any privy information, except I've been following this every single day. Remember, President Trump said, I like making deals, and that would be the ultimate deal. And let me tell you, you may not listen to the established media, you may not realize what's going on, but I have brought to you, and I weeded out a lot of things because of time. I have brought to you what I believe you need to know is going on. So we're going to see what happens. A peace deal is coming, whether it's next month, 3 months from now. The final 7 years to Armageddon will begin, and End Time Ministries is going to absolutely explode worldwide, and we need you on board. And all of you are so wonderful. You've been such a support to us, and you've rallied every time I've asked you to help us. You have done it, so we really appreciate that. Keep praying, and if God blesses you, keep giving. We're going to get to the phones right now. Pamela is calling from Tennessee. Hello, Pamela.
Hi, Reverend Baxter. I hope you had a great weekend. Wanted to give you a little update. Don't know if you've read this particular article yet, but it says Palestinian officials believe that U.S. Donald Trump president will lay out a plan in the coming months on reaching an Israeli-Palestinian peace deal as part of his administration efforts to revive peace talks between the sides. Now, in a meeting on Ramallah on Thursday, White House Senior Advisor Jared Kushner told Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas that Trump would present the plan in the next 3 to 4 months in exchange for the Palestinian leader abandoning efforts to pursue a statehood in international bodies. This was reported by the Israeli Hayom Daily, and it was reported by an unnamed Palestinian official had told this paper. It said the paper said Abbas agreed to Kushner's proposal to give Donald Trump 3 to 4 months, but demanded that Trump personally commit to the U.S. peace plan, setting a meeting between the two leaders, I assume Abbas and Trump, during the UN General Assembly in September. The U.S. plan would include a set timetable for talks, which would focus on the so-called core issues of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Palestinian official said, could we ask you, what exactly is he speaking of the statehood in international bodies, Reverend Baxter?
The international body is the United Nations, and Abbas has threatened, look, if this peace deal is not going to go, then we're going to go back to the UN and ask them to grant us membership in the United Nations. And Abbas has always threatened to get the world community to fight on his side, and the world community has already done that. The biggest step they took was on December the 23rd of 2016, when they passed Resolution 2334, stating that Israel's presence in the West Bank and in East Jerusalem was a flagrant violation of international law. So they've already been involved. The problem is they did that under the Obama administration, and the Obama administration allowed it to happen, and they didn't veto it. Well, right now, it appears that Trump would use the veto on such steps. So what they're doing, they're both saying, look, we've got to get this done. Abbas says, if we don't get it done, I'm going to go back to appealing to the international community. And so they're asking there for Trump to meet with Abbas. He probably will do that because it was announced today that he will be meeting with Netanyahu on September the 17th, while Netanyahu is in New York for the General Assembly, the annual General Assembly meeting. And it appears that Abbas also wants to meet with him. And I don't know whether they can meet together or not. I don't know. But nevertheless, apparently they've asked him to reach a structure to write a peace deal from his perspective and lay it on the table for both of them. But when they say to revive peace talks, I think you can see, and I think all of our listeners can see from what I went through today, peace talks are not dead. They are marching on with almost no hesitation. So that's a little bit of a false view that's being given there by the media that peace talks need to be revived. Peace talks have been ongoing, just not face-to-face peace talks. Good article, Pamela. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. And let's go now to Cynthia from California. Hello, Cynthia. What's on your mind?
Hi. I would like to know, what are the repercussions if a child is forced to get the mark of the beast, because of their parents? A parent decides to do it, and then they make all of their children get it. How can that child? What can that child do?
Cynthia, we have a pattern in Scripture. We know that when the children of Israel refused to go into the Promised Land, that all the children below the age of 20 were not held responsible for that decision. All of their parents died in the wilderness because of their unbelief. But the children lived to go into the Promised Land. Now, whether that rule applies in this case, I cannot tell you for positive. I will tell you this, though. The United States of America is in a very privileged position because the Bible teaches we will not be a part of the one world government of the Antichrist. We will be in opposition to the one world government of the Antichrist, and we will defend Israel against the Antichrist. So from those things, it appears that the mark of the beast will not be implemented here in the United States of America from everything we can see. Most of the world, the mark of the beast will be implemented. So it's very important for us to realize that most of the world is going to be affected, and the United States is going to be in a very privileged position. That means we need to be ready to help the rest of the world. So hope that helps, Cynthia.
Yes, it does. God bless you, your family, and staff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go now to Mark. Mark is on Facebook today out of Ohio. He wants to know, do you think the Palestinians object to sign the agreement on feast? I'm not sure exactly what Mark is asking, whether he is asking would they be willing to sign it on the feast days or not? Now, I understand the motive because September is an important month. September and October is an important time for the feast days. We're going to see the Feast of Trumpets. We're going to see the Feast of Tabernacles and the Day of Atonement all during the next couple of months. Consequently, many of the Israelis might want to sign an agreement at that time. We have no prediction of that whatsoever, so I really cannot tell you for sure. Now, Mark apparently is available to us on the phone, so let's see if we can bring Mark on for a little bit of clarification. Mark, are you with me?
Yes, sir, I'm on.
Okay, exactly what are you asking here?
Well, it just seems that with, Jesus coming on the Passover and being buried on unleavened bread and rising on the first fruits and the Holy Spirit coming on Pentecost, that it seems like major things involving the Christian faith and fulfillments by Jesus seem to happen on Jewish feasts. And I just thought that there's 3 of them coming up in a few weeks, and I just thought that would mostly likely be a time for them to try and get the agreement to be signed on one of those dates.
Well,
so I just thought, would a Palestinian object to that, do you think, doing that on a Jewish holiday? Like it would be giving credence or confirmation or something to the Israeli state, and they wouldn't want to do it on that date. But it seems to me that stuff like that seems to go down on those kind of dates.
Well, the Bible does not indicate that this peace agreement has to be signed on one of those dates. However, we do know that 7 years later will be the end of the Great Tribulation and the Battle of Armageddon and the second coming of Jesus to the earth. Consequently, once they sign this, we know we've got 7 years, and many people do believe that when Jesus comes back and sounds his trumpet, that will happen at the Feast of Trumpets. Now, I can't tell you for positive, like you mentioned, Jesus died on Preparation Day, the day before the Passover. He was the Passover lamb that year. Also, the Holy Ghost was poured out on the day of Pentecost. There are 3 major feast days. There is Passover, Feast of Pentecost, and then the Feast of Tabernacles. The first 2 of those major holidays, huge events happened on those days. Now, with the Feast of Trumpets, it could very well happen that the rapture would happen on that day, even though I'm not sure we can say that with absolute certainty. But for the Palestinians to object, I don't even think they believe in those things, so they probably would not object. Furthermore, they would probably do something either right before or right after, because I think normally those holidays are Sabbath days, and therefore the Jewish people would not be willing to actually do that on the exact day. We'll have to wait and see how that turns out. Mark, good question, though. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We're up against a break, and we have one more segment. We do have lines open, so give us a call. 877-END-TIME is the number to reach me, and we'll be right back.
Jesus prophesied 2 specific things would occur right before his second coming. In this lesson, "This Generation Shall Not Pass," Irvin Baxter discloses what those 2 things are and what will happen. He also proves they are in the process of coming to pass right now. Are we the generation that shall not pass until the promise of Jesus' second coming is fulfilled? To find out, call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. Or order online at endtime.com.
Through the years, we have seen God perform miracle after miracle at End Time Ministries, and we are trusting God for another season of miracles this summer. So we decided that we wanted to share our miraculous story and boost your faith by offering you one of our newest DVDs titled The Miracle Called End Time for free with any purchase of $29 or more. To request your copy, call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463 and mention the code MIRACLE, or order online at endtime.com.
You may wonder if I hope to be here for that final 7 years. I don't think there's any secret. I really want to be here for this final 7-year period. And That means if that's going to happen, it's got to start right away because I'm not getting any younger. Although I'm vigorous, I've been blessed with great health, and I'm ready to work all the way through that final 7-year period, as all of us will need to do. Nevertheless, it looks like we could very well enter this final 7 years very quickly now. It's going to be very interesting to see if the man who wrote The Art of the Deal can put together the ultimate deal. Very interesting. Let's get right back to the phones now, and a Facebook viewer is contacting us, Santa Van Zyl. He wants to know, or she, whoever that is, I'm not absolutely positive, is World War III and Armageddon the same war? It is my opinion that it is not the same war. Now, we have some listeners who believe it is. However, World War III is lined out in Revelation chapter number 9, verse 13 through 21. And it says there at the end of the story of the Sixth Trumpet War, in which 1/3 of mankind will be wiped out, it says, still men repented not of their fornications or of their thefts. Then, that's chapter number 9. Chapter 10, there's an angel standing 1 foot on the land, 1 foot on the sea, declaring that delay shall be no longer. Then we immediately go into chapter 11, which contains the account of the final 3.5 years. The Bible teaches that the 2 witnesses will preach for 1,260 days, which is 3.5 years. And at the end of their ministry, that's when the Battle of Armageddon will begin. And Armageddon will culminate at the streets of Jerusalem, resulting in the 2 witnesses being killed, and their bodies will be left laying in the streets for 3.5 days. And the whole world will mock them and make fun of them because they've been enemies of the New World Order. At the end of the 3.5 days, these 2 men will rise from the dead, stand up on their feet, and then be caught up into heaven. Now, it's my opinion, that's the rapture. So, from that information, I have concluded that the Sixth Trumpet War, also called World War III, is not the same as the Battle of Armageddon. However, we're going to be studying that even closer as time goes along, because they could be fairly close together. We'll have to wait and see. Hope that helps. Let's go now to Missouri. And Louise is calling from Missouri. Hello, Louise.
Hello, Irvin. I was wondering if you had heard, I heard Mark Biltz make the statement that they were titling this General Assembly in September. I guess they title them every year, and they were going to title this one Peace and Safety. And I haven't been able to verify that. I went on the website and tried to read some stuff about the upcoming assembly, and they're talking about peace and they're talking about safety in there, but I haven't been able to exactly verify that. But I thought that was kind of strange.
Well, we're going to have to verify that, because that would be very interesting if they do that. And the reason it's so interesting, the Bible says, and when they say peace and safety, then shall utter destruction come upon them, as travail comes upon a woman with child, and they will not escape. Right. So if they would, in fact, officially name this particular General Assembly Peace and Safety, that would be a real warning sign, obviously. Right. Let me say this, Louise. The General Assembly is a very important time. It's the only time each year when all of the leaders of the world come together. They come to the UN headquarters in New York. There have been as high as 153 heads of state out of the 193 nations on earth. So this is a huge time. I do not know how many of them are coming this year, but the General Assembly happens every year in the month of September, and every single government, it opens up with several days of speaking and debate, and every single head of state or their foreign minister or whoever the head of their state appoints, they have the privilege of standing before the world community and addressing the entire world about the issues that they think are the most critical at that particular time. I think they're supposed to have 20 minutes each to speak. However, some of them usually take longer than that. Usually our president is famous for taking longer than that. I think the president normally speaks toward the front of all this, since we are the host nation, since the UN is located in the United States of America. If President Trump chooses to go there himself, wow, the whole world is going to be tuned into that speech. It is going to be an amazing event. So, like you say, it's going to be very interesting, Louise. But I have not heard. I'll be looking, though, for them calling this the General Assembly of Peace and Safety.
Yeah. Thank you, Irvin, for all you do.
Thank you very much. And, oh, by the way, I'll be holding a prophecy conference on September the 11th in New York, so that could be very interesting. All right, let's go now to another Facebook viewer, Melinda. She wants to know, is God possibly trying to get our attention via Hurricane Harvey? I haven't mentioned this, Melinda, but I did mention it to my wife. I said, you know, Houston has become a very wicked city. They actually voted in a lesbian mayor, and she tried to subpoena the sermon notes for some of the preachers so that if they were going to preach against homosexuality, she could charge them with a hate crime. Now, she is no longer in office, and I do not know the stance of the present mayor. Nevertheless, there is a lot of sin in Houston, and I think Houston needs to be seeking God's face, because this could, in fact, be God expressing his displeasure concerning some of the things there. Now, let me remind you, I happen to know there are some good people in Houston. So I'm not making any kind of an unfounded assertion. The Bible does not say that specifically. But at the same time, we know that destruction came upon Sodom and Gomorrah. We know that the flood was sent in Noah's day to express God's displeasure with the people of that day. So it would not be out of bounds to say this could in fact be God saying to Houston, to Corpus Christi, and to all those areas down there, wake up, quit the sinning business, seek my face, get back to me. The Bible says, if my people that are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, then I will hear from heaven, I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land. So, Melinda, even though I'm not willing to say, oh yes, this is the judgments of God, I cannot say that, because that's not up to me to say. But at the same time, if I lived in that area, matter of fact, no matter where we live, all of us should be thinking, okay, is this the wrath of God? I said to my wife last night, I said, you know, God can change the whole world overnight. His power is so awesome. I mean, just Hurricane Harvey, when you see the power to bring the fourth largest city in America to its knees, it's pretty awesome. And it's so amazing when you think about how great God is. And sometimes as Christians we think, oh, the whole world's against us. But let me tell you, they that are for us are more than they that are against us. When you got God on your side, I mean, enemies have no power over you at all. So it's very important for us to make sure that we always stay where we should stay, with God. It's so vital. It's so very important for us to do that. Now, let me remind you, the first half of the program today, if you missed it, I would urge you to go back to our archives as soon as they're up. I think they're normally up about a half an hour after this program is over. Listen to our archives. As a matter of fact, listen to last Wednesday and to today, because you need to see how close we truly are to a peace deal in the Middle East. It's so vital. It's so important for us not to be asleep at the wheel. Are these the end times? Absolutely. The end time is not coming. The end time is right now. Back to the phones. Connecticut, Eduardo. What's on your mind, Eduardo?
How you doing, Mr. Baxter? Appreciate your podcast and your program.
Thank you.
I've been listening, and one of the aspects of the deal of the peace agreement, I wanted to ask is, doesn't the Antichrist need to be like the main player orchestrating it, and I know Trump seems to be the one getting credit for it. So I was wondering, have you thought of that having to be one of the requirements to actually be the deal that we're waiting for?
I have thought of that. Here's what the scripture says, the prophecy. It says, he, the Antichrist, will confirm the covenant with many for 7 years. Now, the Bible teaches that there will be several participants. Of course, the Israelis are going to participate, the Palestinians are going to participate, and if things continue to go like they are right now, the United States is going to be a central player. Did you notice, as I was speaking earlier today, that Mahmoud Abbas said the Russians have to have a major role in this, so Putin's probably going to be a player. The head of the United Nations is going to be involved. The quartet has recently been over there trying to play a role. Saudi Arabia is going to be there. Jordan's going to be there. Egypt is going to be there. The United Arab Emirates is supposed to be involved. So Trump is inviting all these players in to strengthen this agreement. Now, what that does, that clouds the issue. Okay, which one of these participants is the Antichrist? Now, the reason that's so important is because when you go I'm trying to think of the scripture that was on the tip of my tongue, but the Bible does say the Antichrist will confirm the covenant, but the Antichrist won't be revealed until the abomination of desolation. 2 Thessalonians chapter number 2, verse 3 and 4, it says, then shall that man of sin be revealed who exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he as God sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So it's at the time of the abomination of desolation, after the temple is finished, that the man of sin will be revealed. So even though he apparently will play a role in the peace process, we will not know for certain who he is until he stands on the Temple Mount halfway through the final 7 years. So you bring up a very valid point, Eduardo, that the Antichrist will have to participate, but it appears we won't know for sure who he is, even when the peace agreement is concluded.
Wow. And if lastly, I know we're running out of time, but the temple, does that have to be part of this agreement, or can that come later and then we won't really know when the time starts if that's not part of this agreement?
Well, it looks like to me it's going to be part of the agreement. Now, when it actually happens, the Bible says we see through a glass darkly. So when they sign this agreement, if it's a 7-year agreement, and if it puts the Temple Mount under a sharing arrangement, and if it creates a Palestinian state, and if it allows both Jews and Muslims to worship on the Temple Mount, then in my mind, that will absolutely be the agreement. Now, if it clouds any of these issues, and if it's not certain, then we're going to have to reevaluate when they actually make the announcement. We just don't know for sure yet. Good questions, Eduardo. I've got to let you go now because we are out of time. I want to say one more time to all of you out there, Judy and I are headed for Israel, October the 31st through November the 11th. And we have a little bit of time left to sign up. So if you're thinking about going, don't wait too long. Pick up the phone and call us, 1-800-IN-TIME. Ask to speak to someone about the tour because we'd love for you to go with us. We'll be with you all the way. We'll get to know each other. I'm looking forward to it. 800-IN-TIME.
End of the Age is a production of End Time Ministries. This broadcast will be available on our website, endtime.com, in the archives section. On our website, you'll also find more information about how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy. To reach our operators, call 1-800-END-TIME. That's 1-800-363-8463. End Time Ministries is partner supported. We would like to say thank you to our partners who made this broadcast possible. To do what Matthew 24:14 said, to reach the world with the gospel of the kingdom.